Commerce Secretary, now Gina Raimondo, is in China with hopes of improving the deteriorating relationship between the communist country. The visit comes as China faced a dramatic downturn in their economy, as raising alarms around the globe, and others are saying maybe this will tame this wild beast. Post-pandemic growth has fallen well short of expectation and caused wide instability domestically and abroad. Let's take a look. Here she is, another one to visit. Now, she's just the latest one to visit. You would think that China, who's sucking wind economically, would be sending people over here. But no, we keep saying, please meet with us. Let's have a dialogue. Meanwhile, take a look at their economy. Look at how steady it was. Then they poisoned the world with the pandemic, which they never paid for or admitted to. They immediately spike and start mocking the rest of the world that they're back. Then they get hit. Then they lock down, and the economy loses trust amongst its people. It has never recovered as President Xi consolidates power. Janet Yellen goes over, Treasury Secretary. They put mushrooms in her tea. That was nice. And then Blinken was the first to go over after first curtailing his visit because of the balloon that flew over our country. And we end up going over anyway. And Secretary Kerry gets over there and says, please build some more solar panels. We'll see how that goes. Has this made America safer? Has this solidified our economy? Are we taking advantage of the weakness in China? Joining us now is Wisconsin Congressman and Chairman of the Select Committee on China, Mike Gallagher. Great to see you, Chairman. I'm wondering how you feel about Gina Raimondo being the latest to go over to China. Are you pleased with the dialogue?
I'm not. And remember that Raimondo went to China right after it was revealed that the Chinese hacked her emails. Why? Why go? After you've been robbed, you don't track down the robber, only to ask them if there's anything that they missed. Why are all our top officials flying to China? It makes us look desperate. It makes us look weak when we send all our cabinet officials there, even though the CCP continues its aggression, and especially since neither Blinken nor Yellen nor Kerry came home with any tangible concessions from the CCP. Beijing has refused to take serious action on fentanyl. It won't establish a military-to-military dialogue with us to avoid war. And the CCP is still openly supplying Moscow with war materials. And it also appears on this trip we made concessions as Raimondo agreed to enter into negotiations over our export controls, which will make it much more difficult to get other countries to match our export controls. And it will strengthen the arguments made by U.S. companies to lift our export control restrictions. We need to be strengthening our export controls, closing the loopholes. And right now, I fear that we're going soft on them.
But, you know, we are doing some other things, like trying to bring chip manufacturing home, not selling them certain elements that they need to make their own chips. And then we're consolidating with our neighbors who see a common enemy and challenge in China, like Japan and Australia. Are we working from two sides of the fence and giving off mixed signals? Are we going to look at them as a challenger or look at them as a threat, which we all can conclude they are?
Well, I think that raises a good point that it might have been far more productive for the Secretary of Commerce to spend time negotiating with our allies and strengthening the economies of the United States and our allies, as opposed to taking a trip to Beijing. Commerce can also take steps to improve our foreign policy vis-a-vis China by stopping the flow of U.S. technology to Huawei, stopping these licensing exemptions that we continue to give, strengthening our export controls on advanced semiconductors. Right. We have the October 7 interim rule. We need to finalize that rule, and closing all the loopholes on Chinese supercomputing firm Inspur. There are tangible steps we can do to strengthen our policy, but Biden is reviving the policy of engagement, diplomatic and economic, and I think that's profoundly misguided. Raimondo also said one thing that troubles me. She says, we believe a strong Chinese economy is a good thing, but to me, it's far more important to protect Americans than it is to protect the Chinese economy. And in so much as the Chinese economy fuels their war machine and their genocidal ambitions, it's not clear to me that it's a good thing that we're allowing American cash to continue to flow into the Chinese economy, and we need to cut that off right now as well.
I know it's just so hard because you do have a bipartisan consensus almost on everything you said in your committee. But people at home should understand this. China is right now in a slowdown, the biggest slowdown in decades. You're talking about Nixon era. Young people can't get work. The building is virtually stopped. The people of China have lost faith in their ability of their government to grow the economy. Therefore, they're saving, not spending, causing this downturn. We should, even though they have so much to do with the world economy, we should be taking advantage of this, that in many ways, outside our debt, we are coming out of this stronger than the pandemic they foisted on the world. Final thought on that?
Well, it can make them more aggressive as they face economic and demographic headwinds. And that's the risk that we need to be cognizant of. And that's why we need to be strong. China's in the midst of the largest peacetime military buildup since World War II, possibly ever. And again, part of the reason why we should cut off the flow of U.S. technology and cash to China, which would help us prevent a war and enhance peace and stability in the region.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Congressman Mike Gallagher. I appreciate it. And you always say these candidates should come up with a China policy first and foremost, and that didn't happen on the stage last week. Thank you, Congressman. Meanwhile, straight ahead.